What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and some more Hail Caesar coverage. If you like warbands, then you're going to love this list. So the Early Saxons is a fun one, still in that later Roman period, but goes a little bit beyond that as well. So basically, as they're saying here, 3rd through roughly 7th centuries AD. So things to look at, migration period, Hengist and Horsa, of course, Battle of Sutton Hoo, Beowulf, everyone's heard of him, of course, and then also the Saxon Wars of Charlemagne. So getting again past the Roman period there and dealing with the Franks, who will be coming up in a review soon as well. So again, this is an interesting list. It's rather short, but that's really because it's again just focused on infantry by and large. With, as we see here, it's all about the war bands. So infantry has to be 75% or more of the list. Again, skirmishers don't count for this, but essentially infantry, right? And of that, 75% or more of the, again, non-skirmisher infantry have to be war bands. So whether basic medium infantry or the Gesith, which we'll see in just a moment. There is a smattering of cavalry in here, but again, not much. So this is a, in many ways, rather restricted list, and it's really, again, just about block and block and block of war bands here. Not to say that it's necessarily a bad list or anything. Certainly has some power to it, but again, it's going to be somewhat one-dimensional. But again, you're just throwing waves and hordes of these war bands at the opponent and trying to wear them down with that. So the usual division and skirmisher sub rules there as well. But let's get into the list itself, and that's really all there is to it right here, boys and girls. So let's jump in a little bit closer. So we have Saxon, Anglo, Jute, Frisian, or Frisian medium infantry warbands with swords and javelins. Again, your basic unit here. So Clash of 8, always pretty solid. Drops down to a 6, though. A little bit of short range action. Morale save of 5, as you might expect with medium infantry. And no other special rules, 24 points a pop. Now, where it gets a little bit better here is with the following. So we have Saxon Gesith, medium infantry warbands, and with swords and javelins up to 1 unit. And again, considering how little other selection there is in the list, we're going to be taking this, right? This is like your one chance of having some special rules in the list, and that's really just tough fighters, so you may as well find the points to do that. So 25 points a pop for this one. Again, same stat line, but just tough fighters for basically an extra point over the generic unit. Now we can pay extra here to field them as heavy infantry, non-warband, which is an interesting change. So is it worth it? Well, it might be, right? We're losing a clash, but we're gaining a sustain, so it's basically that, just standard heavy infantry profile, but still with tough fighters for 2 more points. Kind of seems worth it. I might, if I were running this list, I might be tempted to do that. And then if we wanted to pay a little bit more on top of that, again, this is like our one sort of elite, and I don't want to use necessarily the term elite because it's a special rule here in the game, but basically our sort of best possible unit, right? Again, we're only getting one of them, but we can pay a little bit extra still to arm them with heavy throwing spears, essentially the same as Pila rules, and for another 3 points. So basically taking the whole thing to 30 points for that one unit. Still tough fighters, but again, that's about the best of the best that this force can field as far as, like, again, just top tier unit for them. So worth considering, certainly, and could make a nice center point of the army. That's probably where you're gonna want your general around and things like that. Could be really fun there, and they should still do some work, right? And again, whether you leave them as the warband or drop them into the heavy infantry profile could be pretty solid there. Just to go with that extra morale save is always pretty spicy, and Pila and tough fighters. So essentially it's kind of like a pseudo Roman legionary unit in that sense. So, and again, that's the bulk of your army here. You have a little bit in the Skirmisher Package department, which again we'll talk about, although it's rather restricted compared to all the other lists we've seen. But then our smattering of cavalry, if you want it, and again, it's only a 1 unit choice here. So we have Gesith, medium cavalry with spears and or javelins. Might as well take the and, right, because we're not paying extra for it. Fielded as a small unit, so we get 1 teeny tiny unit of cavalry here. And then we could actually upgrade them into heavy cavalry if we wanted to as well. But let's take a look here. So we have 6-3. Again, keep in mind this is a small unit, guys, right? 6-3, 5-up save, no special rules for 19 points. Again, anytime it's a restriction like this where we just have 1 unit maximum, we might as well find the points to take the upgraded version here just to have something a little bit better. So, and we haven't really seen much of this in the list we've looked at so far. So basically a heavy cavalry small unit. Usually it's light and mediums that get the small unit treatment, but here kind of have a weird unit that can punch pretty solidly, right? Clash of 7 is no joke, and certainly not. I mean, for a small unit, that's pretty damn good. So in that regard, certainly can outfight other similar weaker things, and it does drop down to a 4. But again, compared to other smaller cavalry units where they're typically rolling with 3s, you're still better than them in that regard. And actually a 4-up save for a small cavalry unit, again, heavy cavalry profile, worth considering certainly. But that is the limit of fast boys in your list here. So that's all the Saxons have as far as, again, cavalry. That's it. So whether you take it or not, certainly up to you. It might be worth having just to have even a hint of flexibility in the list, and certainly something that could get around a little bit faster, and at least try to head off enemies that are going to be faster than you and outmaneuvering you potentially. But again, you should be blanketing the board with blocks and blocks of warbands, because that's your bread and butter, right? But let's take a look at the sort of minimal skirmisher package we have here. So we're actually going to go to the bottom 2 units for that first. So basically we have our bog standard javelin unit, but then we have a sling and bow option to actually have just a teeny bit of long range in this list. They're both small units, so again, we're topping out at 2 for long range there. And one is a slinger unit, one is a bow unit. We might as well take, again, each of them because, again, it's just the one of. So other than that, we're not going to have any long range whatsoever. 12 points apiece for a small unit of those. Again, easily, I think, justifiable in the list. But our sort of repeatable skirmisher unit is that typical small skirmisher unit with javelins, basically. And, everything else has short range in this list, too, which is great. But, again, I think we're going to need a fair few of those, again, just to sort of screen our warbands, make sure that we're heading off threats and helping to deliver those warbands as unscathed as possible so they can go do their thing. So now the list does top off here with the commanders, of course, and it's actually leadership A, which when I was first looking at it, was kind of surprised. I figured with all the other restrictions here, it might have been a 7, but we still get that average 8, which really I think is necessary to get much out of these guys. Again, 7 I think would be rough trying to get anything done, and probably would force you to be somewhat conservative in your orders. But 8, you can you have the more or less, again, the average that everyone else has. So you should be okay as long as you're not getting too crazy with your orders. But that is basically the Saxons there. So again, this is just if you love, again, warbands, infantry warbands, block and block of that with a smattering of other things, this is for you then. So infantry, or model wise, again, there are a fair few things out there. Certainly some plastics, I think, on Warlord's end, and certainly any number of other metals and stuff like that from other manufacturers. So very easily attainable list, and could certainly look really interesting on the tabletop as well, before you get into later ages, where again we get into the Franks with Charlemagne, the early Viking Age and all that stuff, and other things going on in England as well, which we'll get into as we progress through these lists here. But early, and keep in mind, as it says, right, early Saxons, so things will change a little bit when we see later periods. But again, we're kind of still in that Roman period if we're running stuff from like the 3rd, 4th century still up into then the latter centuries here. So it's interesting to see what these guys are, and then what they can essentially evolve into a little bit later. But again, very one-dimensional list here, just warbands and warbands and warbands. So let us know in the comments, guys, your thoughts on the Saxons, early Saxons. Have you played them, and what have you chosen as opponents or had as opponents? How has that gone for you? Given the lack of flexibility or diversity in the list, how have you approached your game plans for that? Hit us all up in the comments on that, guys. And if you've played against the Saxons, any fun stories there? Was it a tough fight for you? Did you just roll through it? What did you use? Again, hit us all up in the comments, guys. We love hearing your stories. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe as well. And also check out the link in the description there if you want to support the channel a little bit more. Follow that link over to Warlord. Anything you guys pick up helps support us, and we do appreciate everybody who's been doing that. In the meantime, take care, guys. We'll see you in the next one.